wonderfully well read for my age, but incapable. Mrs. Wilcox would not be deterred. "Come down with me to Howard's End now," she said, more vehemently than ever. "I want you to see it. You have never seen it. I want to hear what you say about it, for you do put things so wonderfully." Margaret glanced at the pitiless air and then at the tired face of her companion. "Later on I should love it," she continued, "but it's hardly the weather for such an expedition, and we ought to start when we're fresh. Isn't the house shut up, too?" She received no answer. Mrs. Wilcox appeared to be annoyed. "Might I come some other day?" Mrs. Wilcox bent forward and tapped the glass. "Back to Wickham Place, please," was her order to the coachman. Margaret had been snubbed. "1,000 thanks, Miss Schlegel, for all your help." "Not at all." "It is such a comfort to get the presents off my mind. The Christmas cards, especially. I do admire your choice." It was her turn to receive no answer. In her turn, Margaret became annoyed. "My husband and Evie will be back the day after tomorrow. That is why I dragged you out shopping today. I stayed in town chiefly to shop, but got through nothing. And now he writes that they must cut their tour short. The weather is so bad, and the police traps have been so bad, nearly as bad as in Surrey. Ours is such a careful chauffeur, and my husband feels it particularly hard that they should be treated like road hogs." "Why?" "Well, naturally, he isn't a road hog." "He was exceeding the speed limit, I conclude. He must expect to suffer with the lower animals." Mrs. Wilcox was silenced. In growing discomfort they drove homewards. The city seemed satanic, the narrower streets oppressing like the galleries of a mine. No harm was done by the fog to trade, for it lay high, and the lighted windows of the shops were thronged with customers. It was rather a darkening of the spirit which fell back upon itself to find a more grievous darkness within. Margaret nearly spoke a dozen times, but something throttled her. She felt petty and awkward, and her meditations on Christmas grew more cynical. Peace, it may bring other gifts, but is there a single Londoner to whom Christmas is peaceful? The craving for excitement and for elaboration has ruined that blessing. Goodwill. Had she seen any example of it in the hordes of purchasers, or in herself? She had failed to respond to this invitation merely because it was a little queer and imaginative. She, whose birthright it was to nourish imagination. Better to have accepted, to have tired themselves a little by the journey, than coldly to reply, "Might I come some other day?" Her cynicism left her. There would be no other day. This shadowy woman would never ask her again. They parted at the mansions. Mrs. Wilcox went in after due civilities, and Margaret watched the tall, lonely figure sweep up the hall to the lift. As the glass doors closed on it, she had the sense of an imprisonment. The beautiful head disappeared first, still buried in the muff. The long, trailing skirt followed. A woman of indefinable rarity was going up heavenward like a specimen in a bottle, and into what a heaven! A vault as of hell, sooty black, from which soots descended. At lunch, her brother, seeing her inclined for silence, insisted on talking. Tibby was not ill-natured, but from babyhood something drove him to do the unwelcome and the unexpected. Now he gave her a long account of the day school that he sometimes patronized. The account was interesting, and she had often pressed him for it before, but she could not attend now, for her mind was focused on the invisible. She discerned that Mrs. Wilcox, though a loving wife and mother, had only one passion in life, her house, and that the moment was solemn when she invited a friend to share this passion with her. To answer, "Another day," was to answer as a fool. Another day will do for brick and mortar, but not for the holy of holies into which Howard's End had been transfigured. Her own curiosity was slight. She had heard more than enough about it in the summer. The 9 windows, the vine, and the wych elm had no pleasant connections for her, and she would have preferred to spend the afternoon at a concert. But imagination triumphed. While her brother held forth, she determined to go at whatever cost, and to compel Mrs. Wilcox to go too. When lunch was over, she stepped over to the flats. Mrs. Wilcox had just gone away for the night. Margaret said it was of no consequence, hurried downstairs, and took a hansom to King's Cross. She was convinced that the escapade was important, though it would have puzzled her to say why. There was a question of imprisonment and escape, and though she did not know the time of the train, she strained her eyes for the St. Pancras' clock. Then the clock of King's Cross swung into sight, a second moon in that infernal sky, and her cab drew up at the station. There was a train for Hilton in 5 minutes. She took a ticket, asking in her agitation for a single. As she did so, a grave and happy voice saluted her and thanked her. "I will come, if I still may," said Margaret, laughing nervously. "You are coming to sleep, dear, too. It is in the morning that my house is most beautiful. You are coming to stop. I cannot show you my meadow properly, except at sunrise. These fogs," she pointed at the station roof, "never spread far. I dare say they are sitting in the sun at Hertfordshire, and you will never repent joining them." "I shall never repent joining you." "It is the same." They began the walk up the long platform. Far at its end stood the train, breasting the darkness without. They never reached it. Before imagination could triumph, there were cries of "Mother! Mother!" and a heavy-browed girl darted out of the cloakroom and seized Mrs. Wilcox by the arm. "Evie!" she gasped. "Evie, my pet!" The girl called. "Father, I say, look who's here!" "Evie, dearest girl, why aren't you in Yorkshire?" "No, motor smashed, changed plans, father's coming." "Why, Ruth!" cried Mr. Wilcox, joining them. "What in the name of all that's wonderful are you doing here, Ruth?" Mrs. Wilcox had recovered herself. "Oh, Henry, dear, here's a lovely surprise. But let me introduce. But I think you know Miss Schlegel." "Oh, yes," he replied, not greatly interested. "But how's yourself, Ruth?" "Fit as a fiddle," she answered gaily. "So are we, and so was our car, which ran A1 as far as Ripon, but they're a wretched horse and cart, which a fool of a driver—" "Miss Schlegel, our little outing must be for another day." "I was saying that this fool of a driver, as the policeman himself admits—" "Another day, Miss Wilcox, of course." "But as we've insured against third-party risks, it won't so much matter. Cart and car practically at right angles." The voices of the happy family rose high. Margaret was left alone. No one wanted her. Mrs. Wilcox walked out of King's Cross between her husband and her daughter, listening to both of them. End of chapter 10. Recording by Sage Turtle of quirkynomads.com.